It's the second week of appropriations hearings in the State House and Senate, and the seat got a bit hot today for the PennDOT secretary around the issue of mass transit. Our Dennis Owens live at the state capitol with that story. Good afternoon, Dennis.
Good afternoon to you, James. We're in a Senate hearing room here at the Capitol. They just broke for lunch. They'll be back at it at 1:15. You know, mass transit is the ultimate source of tension in the legislature, as mostly rural Republicans whose constituents don't and never will use mass transit, and then urban and suburban lawmakers, many of them Democrats, whose constituents rely on mass transit. Mass transit dominated the first hour of the Senate appropriations hearing today, specifically whether or not SEPTA, which is in the Philly region, really has the financial crisis that it's been talking about for months. Senators insist that SEPTA actually is sitting on a pot of money that they could be using but are not, while at the same time sounding alarms and threatening service cuts. There were a number of testy exchanges.
For Meredith or me to be able to recall on the fly language in a particular House bill from last session without the ability to have a chance to review it again seems mildly unfair.
Well, let me be a little more unfair. Is it normal to testify in a hearing saying things don't do certain things when I just heard that you didn't even read the bill?
That's not what she said. What she said is that she can't recall what the bill says. She was the one that read it and did an analysis. Of course we read the bill.
Did you read it? Did you read it before you testified?
Absolutely.
Again, that was just one of several testy exchanges between senators, the Republican senators, and the PennDOT secretary. We're going to talk more about that in our reporting later, James, later this afternoon. The issue is this. SEPTA, the day before school was starting in August, and remember, in Philadelphia, they don't really have school buses. They take SEPTA to get to and from school, said that there was going to be severe service cuts. That was a manufactured crisis in the minds of many of the senators who spoke here today, and using school kids as pawns. I asked Mike Carroll about that as he was breaking for lunch just moments ago. He said the bottom line is that money, yes, we have a pot of money, but that money is for future capital projects. That is to upgrade infrastructure, buy new trains, things like that, not for operating expenses. And he was hoping there would be a legislative fix. Yes, maybe there was some pressure applied, but he was hoping there would be a legislative fix. Ultimately, there was not. Ultimately, they decided to tap that pot of money. So that's kind of the bigger story. But I do think it's interesting to note that mass transit really seems to be a political dividing line in this state, depending on where you live. That's the story from the state capitol. James, let's send it back to you.
And Dennis, I think you put it really well there at the beginning there, because it's very interesting with mass transit, how important it is to areas like Philadelphia and cities like that. But other places in the state that are more rural, they don't have to deal with it. So they're probably wondering, why should they have to pay for it?
That's exactly right, and Mike Carroll had the answer to that. He said because in the suburban Philadelphia counties, for instance, they put more tax dollars into Harrisburg than any other area of the entire state, and they need SEPTA to be able to get to those jobs that are paying those taxes. He said a rural county like Forest County, they would never be able to raise the money, or it would take them years to raise the money to fix a bridge. Well, taxpayers down there who are taking mass transit are funding bridge repairs in the rural counties and helping them pay for that. It's a commonwealth, after all, James. That's what Mike said. So all those tax dollars get pulled together. We need it all, is what he argued, even if you're not going to take mass transit. And in fact, mass transit is very important to the two biggest cities in the state, both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And we should know, too, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh get about more than 90% of the overall mass transit money. The rest of the state gets to share about 8.5%.
Yeah, I mean, when you lay it out like that, it is a very interesting topic, and you can see why things got as heated as they got. All right, Dennis Owens live for us there at the state capitol. Thank you so much for that live report. Really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Eric Finkenbinder from ABC 27. We're excited to announce the new ABC 27 News Plus app. Live stream newscasts or watch content on demand. This is different than the ABC 27 app on your smartphone. You can check this out at home, and it's very easy to use. With a Fire Stick, go to the homepage, scroll down to search. From there, enter ABC 27. Move over to the apps, and there we are. Click the icon and install. It's just that easy.